Hey guys, what is up? My name is Amar Payton, and in case y'all didn't know, I like listening to music. So, for today's review, I've decided to review Isaiah Villar's 2018 album, Growing Up. You know, this is not rap at all. This is very much just like chill, singer, songwriter. You know, the instruments pretty much are down to a guitar and drums, which is fine by me. You know that I, have been able to enjoy music of different genres. You know, I'm kind of personally on hyperpop right now, even though I'm not really reviewing it for the podcast. And so, I'm able to appreciate a bunch of different genres. And so because of that, I could listen to music such as this. I listened to this when it came out, I believe, all the way back in 2018, and sadly, I haven't really gone back to this particular album since I listened to it initially. He did come out with another album later on. I forget what it's called exactly, Growing Up Bits and Stuff. And there was an insane demo version of Sinking Deep that I absolutely loved. And I also loved the demo version of Everything's Slowly Changing. And I really fell in love with those versions for some reason. And I'll listen to those again and maybe do another review for that particular album. But the focus today is going to be on Growing Up. Now, Growing Up was a very cool album, and I wish that when I had initially listened to it, I paid more attention to the lyrics. In reviewing stuff for this podcast, I'm going to be looking at the lyrics while I listen to the song, so I get a full picture of what's going on, what's the story being told. And I got a really great appreciation for this album as far as storytelling, because I didn't really notice this originally, but listening to it now, there's a really strong narrative that's being told, and I think that's super dope. It's basically a coming of age album. I think that the general story is that he's like moving from the house where he was before to a new house, and so he's talking about, leaving his friends, crushes, things like that. And then later on, as the album develops, because the first half of the album is a little bit, as one of my friends has described emo music, mopey. But, while yes, it is a little bit despondent in its, retrospectiveness, it does move on later on in the project to, a bit of hope. You see that in track 6, Comfort for My Soul, going on. And actually, the song names do a good job of showing the progression. You have Comfort for My Soul, which is track 6. You have Slow Recovery, which is track 7. And then 9, you have Growing Up, which Growing Up does a really good job of summarizing kind of, where he's at the moment, because it starts off in the beginning of, oh, I'm moving, boo-hoo. But 9 is like, oh, wow, I have to make all these really big life decisions. And I'm kind of, this is a big chapter that, while I miss my former days, this is something I got to dive into and leap into. So from a storytelling perspective, this is definitely one of the better albums. You don't see a lot of Christian artists really crafting stories. It's basically talking about, how Jesus is the best boyfriend in the world and how deeply in love they are with him and how they want to give him sloppy wet kisses and stuff like that. But that's not really what you see in this album. And I appreciate that, because, there's some pieces in this album where it's like, I need to look to God, for solace for these things that I'm going through. But at the same time, it's a lot more of this is real life. These are things that are happening versus, some sort of fantasy land in which your entire life is just nothing but worship and, the sort of like Air One radio type stuff lyrically. This is, some people who, don't particularly like emo music might be like, oh yeah, no, it's nothing but just moping and being sad. But while that might be true for some of the songs, overall, it's a very honest look at reacting kind of emotionally initially to certain things happening, being a little bit, retrospective and kind of thinking through some things, and then moving on to, how then do I react? How do I get ready for my next stages of life? Musically, this album is pretty good. I typically don't listen to music of this ilk. My music tends not to be, super chill music with, artists singing and strumming. I actually have a playlist called Strum Away where it's, rappers, strumming on guitars and stuff. But even then, it's a little bit more energetic than this. What I enjoyed about this, though, is that this is a change of pace. If you ever need to, relax, sit down, just kind of slow down and, be in the moment. I think it's Comfort for My Soul. I think I actually just felt like lyrically, like this is a really good song to just sit down and focus on being in the moment, rather than, what do I have to do next and these sorts of things. And the lyrics tying together with the mood of the music. It's one thing to, listen to some Juice WRLD bangers about, having your heart broken, but I feel like the tone that Isaiah Villar brings, which is, these are kind of sad things, if we're going to be honest. It doesn't really make sense to have, to make like hype bangers out of such a sad situation. So Isaiah Villar, comes to the table with the appropriate mood, and perspective as far as how to present these themes that he's portraying. And yes, he does have some energetic songs. I believe, I think it was State of Doubt was one of the songs that was, relatively more energetic, especially when it comes to the intro to the song. But in general, the songs tended to be kind of chill, and I liked it because it's good to have chill music in your library. You can't have crazy hyper stuff on your playlists all the time. That said, I think that with the instrumentation comes my only critical issue with this, because the production level is pretty good from what I could hear. There didn't really seem to be any glaring issues, didn't have any crazy compression that I could tell that made it sound warped and distorted. There didn't seem to be any autotune applied. Everything sounded really natural and nice and well recorded. But the only thing I would say is, listening to it, I listened to the album multiple times, as part of the review. And I think that as far as me, I kind of got a little bit more of a reminiscence for why I tend not to listen to music that relies primarily on guitars and drums, because as I was listening to it, I did start to get hit with a sense of, sameness a little bit, as far as, these songs have a similar tenor, have a similar tempo. Some of them they don't sound exactly the same, but they do sound similar in a way that, I don't know, they just seemed a little bit, a lot of the songs sounded a little bit similar, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's a style that you enjoy. I'd say this is not my primary style, but, considering the fact that this album is only like 9 songs long, that's not really an issue at all. In fact, each song was so well done that it was hard for me to pick a worst song, because for these reviews, I typically pick a best song and a worst song. And this album was actually, so solid and consistent that, I couldn't just pick one best song. I had to go with 2. And my song that I listed as worst wasn't even because the song itself was bad. I just felt like the melody didn't really do it for me, which, by the way, my best songs, or at least my favorite songs from this project, were Everything Slowly Changing, or either that or Sinking Deep. Both of these songs, they have different energies. Everything Slowly Changing might be the highest energy song on the project, and Sinking Deep might be, the chillest song on the project. But both of these, I think, are really well-written songs. The melodies for these are solid. And the cool thing about them is they can kind of work outside of the story of the album. One thing about me is, when it comes to listening to music, especially music of a personal nature, I like to find music that matches me for where I'm at right now. And I think the cool thing about Everything Slowly Changing and Sinking Deep is they're not, they're not so specific to Isaiah Villar's situation, where I feel like I'm necessarily living inside of his life as I'm experiencing the music. I can listen to the song and be like, this kind of fits where I'm at right now. I don't have to be moving, to to kind of relate to the story that's being told. But all in all, this is a good album. This is a solid album. This is definitely, if you're looking for something chill, if you're looking for, straight indie, this is about as indie as it gets. At least as far as, indie music that I've listened to, both sonically and the fact that he's not signed at all, the fact that he's kind of underground, this is definitely an album that you guys should check out. And even if this is not your primary style, it's not my primary style either. The project only runs about 31 to 32 minutes long. So it's not like I'm asking you to take 3 hours out of your day to go listen to an album by an artist that you don't know. This is 30 minutes of quality music. You can just relax, listen to it, and then you can just go and, bump to your hype songs by, Haze or something. Thanks, guys, for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope you go and check out Isaiah Villar stuff. I did hear that he's coming out with some new stuff soon, so keep your ear to the ground on that. And until next time, I will keep on listening to music. This is Amar Payton, and I enjoy listening to music.